but let's talk to Tom. Tom, you're live with Eric and V. What would you like to talk about today?
Hi, Eric and V. Thanks for having me on. And to talk today about evidence for the resurrection of Jesus and the attitudes that I guess the Bible authors had about what happened. So I'm a questioning theist. I was raised that way, and I do get a lot out of asking questions. This is my first time calling on Talk Heathen, but a couple months ago I called the Atheist experience for the first time, and that was a great experience.
That's awesome.
I thought it would be neat to ask you guys, first of all, I guess in a broad sense, what do you think of like the Bible and the accounts of the resurrection? Are they historic? Are they like legends? So we can get started with that. I'd appreciate that. What do you guys think?
Yeah, good question. So for me, I think that the Bible as a whole is a book that is a very valuable piece of history, not because it's all historically accurate, but because it is old and it is a founding text for a lot of what we consider to be modern society. So yes, as a book, I'm not going to dismiss its impact or the value of knowing about it. I think that there is a lot of poetry in there that's really beautiful at times. You know, Proverbs is cool sometimes. And then we get into the myths of the great kings of Israel, right? And we get into the myths of Jesus. And then we get into Revelation, which is, depending on your interpretation, a acid trip or a veiled rant against the Roman Empire or whatever you want to consider that. So I think that it's a useful book to talk about and to know at least basically what is in it. In terms of Jesus specifically and the resurrection, I think that probably there is a grain of truth in that there was some kind of vigilante, for lack of a better word, a rabbi that was against the Roman Empire and railed against the fact that Rome controlled Jerusalem and raised up a small group of followers with talk about a new kingdom and a new God is coming back and he's going to crush our enemies and all of this. And then he probably got crucified like many dissidents did at the time. And if you look at the book of Mark, which is one of the oldest versions of the gospel, that's kind of where the story ends, right? We don't get a resurrection story there. And then as we see the gospels start popping up later and later and later, we see the myth kind of grow and grow and grow. So first it's just Jesus died, here's his sayings, and this is Mark. And then you've got, Matthew and Luke where he raises from the dead. And then we've got John, where it becomes even more blown up into these epic proportions. And then we've got gospels that aren't in the Bible that were written after that, where it becomes even more far-fetched and giant ethereal crosses come down from the sky during the resurrection and walk around, which is strange to imagine. So for me, I think that there's probably a grain of truth there, and I'm willing to grant that. But as far as the resurrection, I think that's probably part of an ever-growing myth around the character of Jesus.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah, you said a lot. I agree with what you said about the value of the scriptures and how much influence it's had. And yes, I question, too, how much of it is legend and how much is honestly what the people believed back then and why. And so I'm trying, I've listened to people like N.T. Wright. I don't know if you've heard him. He's like a New Testament scholar. And he has been arguing about how firmly the people did believe in a bodily resurrection back then. And I take it seriously. I don't know if it would be possible for a legend about that to form. And I don't know. I wonder how Christianity took off and why they didn't choose, one of his points was, why didn't they choose another Messiah for them after Jesus was crucified? Wouldn't it have made more sense for them to say, oh, maybe his brother's the Messiah? Or, so those are tough questions for me. And I take them seriously, but yet I don't. I'm still, I've always doubted. And I mean, just from an emotional point, I grew up believing that the Bible was all inerrant and all infallible. And so that was kind of the first reason why I started questioning, because I was getting hurt by that. And, just earlier this morning, I was listening to one of my old preachers who said, the word of God is always the right thing. And, it can be misused, but using that as the top authority. And so that scares me. And, I'm on a journey but yet I I'm not ready to just say, okay, I know for a fact it was a legend. Like, I'm still searching for an explanation for why the people in the Bible like wrote as if maybe there was a physical resurrection. So I'll stop there. Don't want to go on too long, but like, do you get it at all? And like, I want to know, like, are there other religions?
Totally.
Like, so, okay.
Yes. And I do want to clarify one thing before we move on, and I'll let Eric weigh in on his view of this as well. But there's a difference between, I don't know for sure that it was a legend. That is the best conclusion that I can come to with the evidence that I have and the research that I've done. It's the version that has the fewest assumptions about things I can't prove, like the existence of a God or an afterlife or the possibility of resurrection. So that is the thing that makes the most sense to me based on what I've looked at. But you don't have to know that for sure before you can start moving away from that, right? Because that puts the burden of proof on proving that it was a legend, when in fact, the burden of proof should be on the people claiming that there are other things going on as well, right? Oh, it was God, it was a resurrection, it was the supernatural, he was the Son of God, all of this. Okay, well, we don't have to disprove that. We have to prove that. And if you can't do that, then that's where that questioning comes in, and that looking for, okay, I can't prove that. I don't see sufficient evidence for that. What other explanations are there that might be a little bit more grounded in reality and what I can discover myself? So just in terms of that. Also, if you're looking for more research, the Lost Gospels, or Lost Christianities rather, by Bart Ehrman, is beautifully written. It is so interesting, and I definitely would recommend that.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
If I can weigh in just a little bit, but I want you to have the opportunity to respond to V.
Sure.
Yeah, if there's anything, because I'm going to keep going. So if there's anything you wanted to throw in before I do. No? Okay, cool.
Go for it.
It sounds like what you're saying, and please correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like you're saying that you need to understand why these apostles thought what they did in order to prove or disprove the claim. It sounds like a lot is hinging on what was in their minds.
Yeah, I'm curious as to why they believed that and why it became a phenomenon. And
sure,
that makes sense. Yeah,
it does. It absolutely does. Here's the thing: I think you're setting yourself up for some failure here, man. And I'll tell you why. Right? Let's go through both of the scenarios where they let's say they honestly, truly believe that they had an experience. That still doesn't mean that experience happened. It could be there are plenty of people, and I know I point out cults who say, that they saw their cult leader perform miracles. How do you know that those people weren't deceived? I think they could have been very honest about it, but whether or not they were honest about it doesn't impact whether or not the claim is true. And so whatever was in their minds doesn't really impact whether or not the resurrection happened. All it does is talk about what was in the apostles' minds. And it makes me think of an episode that I believe it was V and Jenna Belk on the Atheist Experience, where someone called in who was Jewish, and they said that they were given the task, you have to find a fish that has no scales and no fins. And if you can find a fish that has no scales and no fins, then you've proved that God does not exist. What does that have to do with anything? Right? There's a similar Muslim one, and that is if you can make the sun move the opposite direction. So instead of rising in the east and setting in the west, if you can make the sun rise in the west and set in the east, then you can disprove them. Neither of those things have anything to do with the truth claims made in their books. They're just setting up some impossible task for you. And I think if I remember the episode correctly, V, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said, until you can show me a unicorn, I'm right.
Yeah.
So you need to bring me a unicorn.
Two can play at that game.
Yeah. And until you do, then I'm right about pretty much everything. And but you see how those things are not connected?
Yes, I do. And I have considered that, let's say that there was some miraculous resurrection. That doesn't even prove that Jesus is God per se.
Right.
Like maybe it could prove that it's a weird world we live in and we don't know something. So I know that like it takes another whole step to say, oh, everything in the Bible and all the claims are true in it. So yes, I'm aware of that. And that's what keeps me questioning. Anyways, I do still wonder about like why it caught on, if it was a dishonest or if it wasn't a significant experience that they had of Jesus, like, you know, like maybe it was a spiritual, or like someone witnessed Jesus as angel instead of a physical resurrection. Like that's hard to and people like N.T. Wright say that the best explanation is a physical resurrection to fit how they were talking about it. And I don't know, I guess I don't mean to like belabor the point, but like that still is, I don't know.
Can I ask you,
okay,
is that different from an ad populum argument?
By
For people who are watching, ad populum let me explain it. I apologize. That's Talk Heathen is for explaining this. I'm sorry. Ad populum is the idea that something is true because it's popular, right? All of the people believe it, and therefore it's most likely true. Or, you know, everyone jumped on that bandwagon, therefore. And so
right.
it becoming popular is its growing popularity. Does that directly determine whether or not the claim is true? I don't think so.
No, not necessarily. No.
Yeah. And so that might also be kind of a weird path to go on. I don't think that's going to get you where you think it's going to. The popularity doesn't matter. But
yeah, right.
If I mean, I could totally imagine a scenario where you have a people who are being who are under the thumb of the Romans, who are not liking it and finding a story that resonates with them and going along with it. There's power in narrative, and there's power in story. And whether or not it's true, it can still unite people. I mean, and that alone should be one thing that should hopefully take you off of that course, because its popularity, really, it has nothing to do with its truth.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, that's good to be reminded of that. And I do take that seriously. And I don't think that because something is so popular, it's true. Like, I mean, Muslim is a fast growing religion, and I could say, well, look, it must be true or all true or something like that, or maybe a grain of truth in it, because look how many people believe it. But then it's like it conflicts with another really popular religion. And I don't want to, just lay all of my hope on, it's popular. That's not what, that's not where I want it to end up. So anyway.
Tom, you're asking the right questions. You're asking all the right questions. I'm actually very excited for you.
You need to start a blog or something. I would read that.
Right?
A series. That way we can see your journey as you go through it.
Or you could just call back. We could check in.
Call back. Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Of course. And
all right. Well, I appreciate the time. You guys are great. It was nice talking to you.
You too.
Take care.
All right.
Wow.
Nice.
That was a very, very clear assessment. And he was ready too, right out of the gate. He was like, here's what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
And he was concise. I liked that a lot.
Great call. Great call.